Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, Patrick and Mark fight a stapler. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, including a new Paper Mario trailer. And then on Thursday, we are going to be talking about Nintendo's E3 presentation from 2010. But Mark, in the meantime, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Patrick, can I ask you, in the scenario in the cold open, in which you and I are fighting a stapler, in this scenario, like, is one of us the Toad and one of us is like the Mario? Like, one of us is the companion Toad, and we don't even have to answer that. I think we should just we can just like put it out there for ourselves and our listeners to ponder. Like, in a Mario Toad scenario, which one
of us
are you?
Is the Mario and which is the Toad?
Yes.
Boy, that is a tough, revealing, vulnerable question, and I can't believe we're posing that to our audience. Right into Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And let us know who's the Toad and who's the Mario. Look, at least neither of us is the Sonic the Hedgehog. If you would like to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch, you can. All you got to do is write into us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com and give us a mailing address where I can send you my copy. You play it for as long as you want, and then you send it back. It costs you nothing. It is the perfect borrowing program.
And not to keep bringing this up, but is the perfect borrowing program about to be like perfect in practice, or are we waiting a little bit of time?
Instead of theoretically perfect, it's tough because there was a little bit there where it seemed like things were getting better, and then it's like, no, maybe things aren't getting better. We're all just pretending that they're getting better. So I don't know what to do, Mark.
Well,
what do you think?
I think in whatever form the Sonic borrowing program continues on, and someday it will be sent through the mail. That's a Nintendo Cartridge Society promise. Now, when that is exactly, like, who is to say?
It is as much of a crapshoot as whether or not you will enjoy playing Sonic Forces.
And that feels part and parcel for the program as a whole. Hey, of course, like, there's no E3 this year. Wildly, last week would have been E3, which is like crazy to think about. But that doesn't mean that we're not celebrating E3 all month long by looking at Nintendo E3 presentations from the past. This week we are going to be looking at the 2010 E3 presentation, which I think has the 3DS reveal and also some more about Skyward Sword, but like this one I genuinely don't know what to expect.
Who can remember?
And then the final week is 2011, following up on the Wii U reveal, I think.
Also, it should be noted that in honor of E3, we are, of course, recording all of our episodes this month in Los Angeles, where E3 is normally held. So that's, just another one of the programming notes to let you know that we've not forgotten about E3.
That's right.
Also, Mark, we got a question from a listener on Twitter, from @andextinction, who writes, "I'm getting a Switch next week with Pokemon Sword and Smash Brothers. What are some of your recommendations for?" And then he lists, they list a couple genres of games, including JRPG, action game, sports, and leisure. There's a follow-up note here. I also own an Xbox One and PS4 and prefer to play those on the television, so Switch exclusives are preferable. Please and thanks. Mark, do you have recommendations for a JRPG, an action game, and a sports and leisure game?
Well, first of all, congratulations on the Switch.
Yes.
That's very exciting. So JRPG is a little bit tricky for me because I went through like all the games that I have on my Switch just to remind myself. And looking at just things that are like Switch exclusives, it's a little bit harder because like Octopath Traveler's on there. I liked
But
what I
it's not
played of
that.
Octopath Traveler, but I
Yeah.
didn't finish it. And
I mean, that's the story of Octopath Travelers, that people like what they play of it, but then they stop, and there's nothing that draws you back to it.
it's
It's a
also on at
great
least
12 hours of a game.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's also at least on PC right now, so I didn't know if it counted. But so what I ended up coming up with is for JRPG, really the only one that I have on my system that I've played all the way through is Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I loved. Now, not a JRPG, but also on to like give an honorable mention to Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, which is
Mm-hmm.
also like a really fun game, and I think like $15 until midnight tonight.
Yeah, yes, correct. Also a game that is on sale until midnight tonight, Tuesday night, is Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. And yes, you could have played Dragon Quest XI on PlayStation, but the Definitive Edition is truly definitive. It has so many quality of life improvements. If you haven't played it on PlayStation, or even if you have, it is just it is a wonderful game. One of my favorite games from last year. I cannot sing its praises loudly enough. But so those are two good answers, Mark. We gave two good answers for that one.
Oh, phew. That's a huge relief. Should we quit while we're ahead, or I guess we should answer action game?
Let's try to figure out action game. What do you think for action game?
So action game, like, I am curious to know what and Extinction, like, what in their mind an action game is, because like I feel like it could be anything. Um,
Yeah.
so I know that they're getting Smash Brothers and Pokemon Sword, but if you like, obviously, like Breath of the Wild would be a big one. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, like Mario Odyssey, Link's Awakening, I don't know, like Luigi's Mansion 3. And those are all just like Nintendo first party titles, because those are the ones that
Yeah.
I was like, I know for sure this is a Switch exclusive. Like games I really liked, like The Messenger or like Katana Zero. I think those are available on like a ton of platforms. Although I would argue that they work great in handheld.
Yeah, I mean, and Messenger for me would definitely be one of those that I would recommend. But also, a Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, like
Yes.
that, and it is another game that is on sale until midnight tonight. Is a it is a strict platformer, but it is one of those like demanding platformers where, especially if like you steer yourself towards the more difficult levels, like you have to be really exacting and really specific in all of the choices you make there. I guess again, not technically a Switch exclusive because it was on the Wii U previously, but a great game regardless. And then finally, sports and leisure.
So
I'm gonna recommend a very recent game. I'm enjoying Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. I just really like it. It's so cleanly presented, and there are so many games in there, and maybe like 10 of them aren't really worth your time. But that still leaves 40 games that are going to be fun to either play by yourself or with someone locally or online. And the game is always only $40. So that one feels like a very good like you just have lots of different options to it, and definitely falls into that sports and leisure category.
plus you get piano for free.
You get a piano. Does piano count as one of the games?
It does not.
Perfect.
It's 51 games plus piano. So my vote is that you go ahead and spend the $20 a year to get the Nintendo Switch Online, because 3 years you're paying for a full price game, plus you get access to the SNES and NES Online games and Tetris 99,
Yeah.
which I think is a really great deal and has lots of great like just chill out games.
That's a great point, and it means that you have access then to the best sports game on any Nintendo platform, which is of course ice hockey on the NES. A perfect hockey game. Okay, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week.
All right, so I've still been playing The Outer Worlds. I think, again, I'm not like super far into the game. I've put maybe like 4 more hours since last week, so 10 hours total. But I think I'm beginning to understand like the scope of the game a little better. So last week, I just finished Terra 2, so kind of like the first big planet that you start on. And that's definitely like a really like expansive planet with like different areas, but it's not like huge. um and then I went to like a space station, which is like I don't know, basically it seems like it's like a mix of like uh I'm guessing there's maybe 2 or 3 of these like Terra 2 type planets. Like I went to another one called Rose Water, I think. Rose something. And that's another one like Terra 2 that's like pretty big and has like a lot of area for you to walk around in. Then I went to another one and like it was fairly small and was like enclosed in like this like glowing dome type thing. So it does seem like the scope of the game is reasonable, that I could potentially finish in maybe like 25 or 30 hours if it like keeps up how it is. Everything I've said holds true for like the technical aspect of the game, especially in handheld. It looks like really bad in handheld.
Oh, no.
On TV, it is fine. I've gotten used to it. It's like watching a Shakespeare play, where when I first start, it's like I this doesn't make sense to me. Like I have to like immerse myself, and you like get into the language, and then by the end, you're like totally rocking. And that's how
That
it
is
is.
such a generous read of the of the technology issues in the Switch port of
It's,
The Outer Worlds.
I mean, you're either going to like get used to it and just like enjoy the
Sure.
game for what it is, or you're not. And I think it's totally fair to not. Like I said last week, I do not recommend people pick up this port. I just don't think it performs well enough to warrant the $60. That being said, since that is how I chose to buy it, I am enjoying it for what it is.
Have you been able to continue to play the game the way that you want? Because I know you said last week that you weren't interested in like the combat, and you wanted to talk your way out of whatever situations or use whatever other skills to resolve conflicts. Are you still able to do that as you get deeper into the game?
So you are, to a degree. Like there are definitely times where like if you want to complete a quest, you just don't have a choice. Like you have to do the combat. Um so like yes and no. For the most part, like you don't have to do a ton of combat. Like I don't get into like a ton of firefights, but occasionally like I had to complete a bounty and do stuff like that. Or I chose to complete a bounty, and the only way that I could do it was by actually like like killing the person.
Yeah.
And so at that point it was unavoidable. It's still not any fun, but what it is what it is.
Sure. We also spent some time this weekend, the two of us playing Splatoon 2 together. So, from going to talking about a game that came out, last year, to a game that came out several years ago at this point, we spent all of our time in Salmon Run, which is continues to be a fun, stressful time. I wonder what the like average clear rate for people playing Salmon Run is, because you and I maybe finished it twice, like finished the third wave like maybe twice in the hour or so we played.
Yeah, I would be curious too, because it didn't, like, occasionally we were paired with 2 other people, and as a group we worked really well together without like communicating. But most of the time it didn't seem like we were dragging people down. You know what I mean? Like it
It
didn't.
didn't seem like it. It's hard to know. Obviously we're not on like a global voice chat or anything, so like if we are dragging someone down and they are cursing our names, we'll never hear it. But so yeah, I don't think there were many times where we were like dragging down the average. I think we were always contributing.
I think
Always
I think
contributing.
we were okay. I mean, for sure, like in that game, if I get a sniper weapon of any kind, I'm basically like, it's really difficult for me to contribute very well. And so I always hoped to get them early in like round 1 or round 2, Because if I had a sniper rifle in like round 3, like I was basically useless. And in those cases, I 100% dragged us down.
It was super fun. When we decided to play Splatoon 2, I was like, okay, cool. Let me find the game card. So issue number 1, find the game card. Issue number 2, download the update. There's an update. Surprise, you haven't played this game in a year and a half, Patrick. And then surprise number 3, you have to install the update. These are normal video game things that I just wasn't thinking about when I texted you on a whim to say, hey, do you want to play something? But I'm glad that we muscled through it and got to play some Splatoon 2. Remains a good game. And then, as I indicated in the previous segment, I am playing Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. I've been playing it some by myself, in particular the Mahjong Solitaire. I'm finding to be very just like relaxing and chill, and it's just about matching up shapes that are the same and like doing it in the right order so you don't. It's so chill and it's so relaxing, and like the music is nice. Everything feels good in 51 Worldwide Games, Clubhouse Games, whatever the name of this game is. I'm gonna mess it up every time. There are nice like subtle vibrations with everything. The sounds are all like super satisfying when you move a tile or play a card or whatever. Sarah and I played a bunch of Mancala the like first night that we were playing it together, which is a game that I had not played in like this physical game that I've never played before, but now I understand like the rules of and like the strategy to it. And that's such a every single one of these games I feel like is one of those where like they tell you the rules and then there's a point in there where it's like you'll understand when you play a little bit and then play a little bit and then understand the rules. And it always just takes that like I need like some kind of external motivation to be like try this game, mess it up a couple times and then you'll have fun. And so far I've done that with maybe like a dozen of the games in the collection, and I'm really enjoying it. Mark, have you discovered, first of all, have you played any more of Clubhouse Games?
No, I haven't.
There is a game in there called Six Ball Puzzle, which is a falling block style, like Tetris-esque kind of game where you need to line up the different color balls in different shapes: pyramids, hexagons, straight lines, and diagonal lines.
Oh yeah, I played this with June, where you have the 3 like orbs and they're rotating. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Sarah and I discovered that over the weekend, and we're both pretty big like Tetris fiends, Dr. Mario fans, Puyo Puyo people. And so like when we discovered that there is a game like that in this, we were like, oh no. It's very satisfying. I like it a lot. And I just want to play more of it, and I want to discover all the other like dumb little things like that I don't even know are in this collection. It seems like the gift that keeps on giving. All right, so that's what we've been playing this last week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
Tomorrow, June 17th, Pokemon Sword and Shield: The Isle of Armor DLC is released.
Do you have any intentions of going back to Pokemon either for this DLC or not?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Me too.
And then on Thursday, June 18th, Namco Museum Archives Volume 1 and Volume 2 are released. In total, it's like 21 games, 11 on Volume 1 and 10 on Volume 2 from the and each one includes a game that's never been like released before. So on Volume 1, there's a 8-bit demastered version of Pac-Man Championship Edition, and then in Volume 2, it's a localized version of Gaplus, Gaplus, that a game that was never localized or released in the West.
That's interesting. I remember messing around with the Namco Museum collections on the PlayStation, I believe, back in the day. and really liking the like actual museum functionality, like walking around a pretend museum, and then like messing around with the games for a couple minutes and realizing I don't like most of these games. Um, but is there anything like in these collections that like you're drawn to specifically, or any of these games that you would be excited to revisit?
No, not really. I mean, I don't like we've talked about like 8-bit games or like 8-bit arcade games especially. Like score attack games just don't do anything for me.
Yeah,
Um so I like these as like a historical um what's the word I'm looking for? I was going to say monument, but that's not true, but I'm going to go with it anyways. Like
great.
a monument to Namco's 8-bit arcade games. But no, like otherwise it's just not really my thing.
Do you think that you have a distaste for score chasing games because you were so thoroughly humiliated in our Donkey Kong 3 contest?
I mean, it didn't help. And then on Friday, June 19th, Burnout Paradise Remastered is released on the Switch. One of the rare EA games, and really just in general, one of the rare EA remasters.
Yeah, weird. And it's coming out. There are also a ton. We sort of alluded to it in our recommendations for at and Extinction. But there is a big summer game sale that is happening right now that ends tonight, Tuesday, June 16th at midnight Pacific time. And it includes a bunch of Nintendo published games, which, as you well know, almost never go on sale. So it would be a good time to pick those up if you let any of them uh, like sit because you didn't want to pay full price. We're talking about games like Astral Chain, Box Boy and Box Girl, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, which is less than $30. Dragon Quest XI Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition is $42.99. It's normally $60. It is, like I said, one of my favorite games of last year. If you are even remotely curious about it, now is the time to pick it up. Also, Dragon Quest Builders 2 is the same price. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is $41.99. That means it's finally down below the price it was on the Wii U. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Like, I loved Doom. Bethesda has a lot of their games on sale, so Doom is $30 right now. It's half price. That's a great deal for a really fun game and not a bad port at all. But like I mentioned, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is $15, which is
Yeah.
another incredibly good deal. I am so tempted to pick up Captain Toad. I have never bought it before. It's only like $28. It seems like the perfect time to pick it up, but there are a lot of really good deals going on. Time to what would have been E3. Nintendo usually has like a big sale like this. But just like recording in LA, it's another reminder that we're keeping the E3 torch burning.
That's right. And there are a lot of the sort of like second tier Nintendo games on this list. The ones that like probably weren't worth $60 right when they came out, but are pretty good experiences nonetheless. I'm talking about games like Kirby Star Allies, like Mario Tennis Aces, like Super Mario Party. I think all of those games are worth the $42 they're asking for, and probably not worth the full 60, but like are very fun experiences, especially if you can pick them up a little bit cheaper, which you can if you act like now. All right, let's close this out. Now it's time for a regular segment on our show. It's time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance of 433, we will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. I don't even know what happened. I was still reading the copy on our show notes. Mark, we are talking, this is going to be the consequent phrase to the antecedent of last week. We are talking about our reactions to the PlayStation 5 Future of Gaming event from last week, Thursday. Mark, what did you think?
I thought it was like such a clear continuation of Sony's strategy from the PlayStation 4 era, where it's like, yeah, if you have a PlayStation 4 and you liked your PlayStation 4, like they're just saying this is going to be more PlayStation 4, so this is the platform for you. And it's hard to argue with that message.
Yeah, well, and it's also hard to argue with seeing so many big games like back to back to back to back to back like this. It was over an hour. It was mostly game reveals, and very few like ports or like boring sequels. Like all of the sequels were like interesting. Not all of them. Gran Turismo 7 is another Gran Turismo game. Like, and I guess Resident Evil 8 can kind of fall in that same category. But it's interesting. I was thinking about how the last couple of years of PlayStation and PlayStation events have been a little bit marred by the idea that we've seen all of their big guns. Like The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima and Death Stranding were like the marquee titles for years, right? And now all of that stuff is actually coming out. And for the first time, we're in a space where we don't know or didn't know what games are on Sony's horizon, and now we do. And I feel like we're going to be talking about, or the games industry is going to be talking about, these 37 games for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And it's interesting to me. I think it's a reflection of like where I am with gaming right now, where it's like there weren't a lot of like watching it. Like I could appreciate everything that was going on, but like I also felt alienated from games a little bit, where it's just like, man, like I personally just like don't care about a lot of what this is trying to do. And I guess like I appreciate it for what it is, but like it doesn't appeal to me personally.
Yeah. Was there like a specific like announcement or something that you think like kind of typifies that, like seemed like a big deal, but you didn't hit you at all?
The one that actually is kind of like a bummer for me personally is Resident Evil 8, where
Yeah.
like I haven't played Resident Evil 7, but I consider myself like a big Resident Evil fan. And I don't know like where the franchise is going. I think answers want or like the need for a lot of people, and so I understand why it's going there, but it just doesn't it is appealing to me less and less. I kind of
Yeah.
miss like the goofiness of it.
Yeah. There is a little bit of a sort of smoothing over of some of like PlayStation's or gaming's like weirder edges in this. I mentioned to you the other day that it is weird to see both Astrobot and Sackboy sort of recontextualized, because the Astrobot is a VR game, or two VR games, right? Or a VR experience and a VR game. And Sackboy is from Little Big Planet, and both of these like mascots are sort of being lifted out of their quirkier, less accessible games and like genres, and sort of just being put in like 3D platformers to sort of, I don't know if they could be good 3D platformers, but it feels like what makes PlayStation special is the way it embraces that sort of like weirder stuff, and it feels like maybe some of this is just less weird, you know?
Yeah. Do you know, although I was excited to see a new Ratchet and Clank game,
Yeah.
I really love Kraken Time, I think is what it's called, for the PlayStation 3. And I'm really excited about a new one on PlayStation 5. That's probably the game that I left being like the most like, ooh, like that looks like a lot of fun to play, which is just where I'm at with games right now. Like a lot of what Sony's first party titles do is like, they're more about games as art, or like, putting games in kind of that more, for lack of a better term, like adult framework. And it's like that
Yeah.
just is not something that I'm all that interested in.
I believe we are contractually obligated to talk about the actual box itself, which they end the conference with a white tower that's like 6.5 feet tall, I think.
So,
What'd you think of it, Mark?
A friend of the show, June, pointed out that it looks like an Alienware laptop, or an Alienware like tower. And I think he totally nailed it. But like also I'm kind of into it. I'm like, yeah, let's make these things super weird.
Yeah, I mean the consoles don't look weird enough. I think they're especially like PlayStation, and Xbox. The last couple generations have just been like the nondescript box that goes under your entertainment center. We did get the applause there for the end of 433, but I didn't want to cut you off.
Well,
And then,
I
yeah.
guess we'll never know for sure.
Oh, yes. We were accompanied today by an ensemble at the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix, Arizona. Mark, let's get into the news.
So last week, Nintendo released a new trailer, or really like kind of informational video. It's about 5 minutes long about Paper Mario: The Origami King that detailed some new information about the game, including some of Mario's companions, the combat system, learning a little bit more about the rotating circles to line up enemies.
Hmm.
Boss fights, which are like photorealistic depictions of things like a case of colored pencils, a person made out of rubber bands, a tape dispenser, um,
This
and
so I think I would just want to jump in here because I really like this and I think it's funny and I saw it was like getting a little heat on online from people being like, here's what the bosses looked like in Thousand Year Door and here's what they look like now, and the bosses now are a tape dispenser. But I think that's funny. I think when they did something similar in Color Splash, where it was like basically the summons were like real world items. So like you could summon a lemon and like everything's made out of paper except for this lemon that appears and it's like a real textured lemon. And I don't know, I like that stuff. It makes me laugh.
yeah, they showed off some other stuff like hidden toads throughout the game that you're trying to find. This is another one where online you saw a lot of um kind of like comparing and contrasting with in the first two games in the franchise, there were lots of toads, but they all had different like personality and different like roles. And in the later games it's all just been like you're gathering like a bunch of like generic toads.
Yeah.
And then so it's interesting because in the rumors before this game was revealed, a lot of the talk was like, oh, it's a new Paper Mario game and it is more of a return to form. And I think the more we're like learning about it, the less that is proving to be true. And by return to form, people mean like it's like a 1,000-year door, basically.
Yeah.
But at this point,
Yeah.
we've
And
had more games that are not like that than
mhm.
games that are like that. So it's like if that's what you want from Paper Mario, and it's kind of what I want from Paper Mario, it's like the Paper Mario franchise has been telling us for years that that's not what it is.
Yeah, I mean, arguably that's just what the like Mario RPG series is, or like the Mario and Luigi series. That like that's if you want just like a straight up RPG, like that's in a almost a different category. Paper Mario, especially in the last like three entries, have been about a Mario made out of paper, right? Like the RPG aspects of it don't necessarily take a back seat, but like the primary like feature of it is that it is in a world where paper folds up and where you are painting things or putting stickers on stuff, and like the physicality of the paper is important,
Yep.
and I think that's what we're going to get here.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like the battle system seems interesting. I don't know, like I'm cautiously optimistic. This idea of like having a time limit to turn the dials, and if you can get the enemies lined up in the circle, then like you get bonus points or whatever. It's all interesting. Um am I think I will probably wait for reviews on this one, which is a different tune than I was singing just a couple of weeks ago. Like I'm still excited for it, but I guess I'm feeling a little bit burned from the Outer Worlds, where it's like, well, maybe I want to see how this like all comes together
Sure.
before I like commit to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a little bit more positive on it because it looks not dissimilar to Color Splash, which is a game that I did like while I was playing it. But in not really. Well, I tried to revisit it just a couple weeks ago and was just sort of lost in the when you revisit an RPG that you haven't played in 2 years, just sort of had that experience with it. But it looks better than that. And if it has smoothed over what is like hyper clunky about Color Splash's um, battle system into something that's more manageable and like just contained to like the one experience, I'm probably gonna really enjoy this game.
Hey, what do you think is going on with Ring Fit Adventure? And specifically its availability at retail stores in North America.
Yeah, I would say a mystery is a brewing here. It seems like Nintendo has restocked some suppliers in some capacity, but without too much fanfare, or like with some fanfare,
Yeah,
but maybe
I
I
think maybe
can't
like a
tell.
surprising amount of fanfare because they sent a tweet and they sent an email that's like, "Hey, Ring Fit Adventure is going to be back in stock," and we have seen that to be true. So friend of the show June, he was able to pick up a copy, I think on maybe Amazon, but then he's been sending me links as they become available on like Best Buy. And so even today on Best Buy, I went to the page. It looked like it was available. I was able to add it to my cart, and then when I went to check out, like it said, "Oh, looks like
No
it's sold
more.
out." Yeah, exactly. So I think it's kind of like an NES Classic Edition type thing, where they're like pulsing them out and trying to restock as much as possible. And then maybe retailers are kind of like also pulsing it out a little bit, like they're like making it available a little bit at a time. So I guess the moral of the story is like keep your eyes peeled because it seems like Ring Fit Adventure is getting restocked, but you just have to be like really quick on the trigger.
Yeah, one thing that it also means is that this is bringing down the price that you're seeing on the secondary market. It wasn't that long ago that copies of Ring Fit Adventure were reselling on like Amazon and eBay for like $280. And I'm looking at Amazon right now, and you can get new copies of it for $140. That's down quite a bit from where it was. I also saw some on eBay earlier today that were like 110. So just having more of them out in the world has made the scarcity obviously less. So the price also kind of comes down on them. So yeah, but you may be able to buy it at retail. So if you are interested in that, just kind of keep your eyes open.
For the first time ever, and I'm sad to report this is not a Nintendo specific story, a mainline Persona game is available on a platform that is not PlayStation. Persona 4 Golden, which was previously a PS Vita exclusive remake of the PS2 game Persona 4, is now available on Steam. So, Patrick, do you think that the fact that it is no longer a PlayStation exclusive, that it's available on PC, means that we may eventually see this title or another Persona title on Switch?
Um, Now this is a great question, and obviously one of my predictions for this year was that we will not see Persona 5 on Switch this year, and I believe I amended it by saying or ever. But I mean, it does. I mean, one of the reasons that made me say or ever was because Atlas has this relationship with Sony as far as Persona is concerned, and that's one of those like impenetrable Japanese business things that like we'll probably never know the full details of. But just knowing that Persona 4 Golden appears now on a platform that is not the Vita, even if it were just remade or re-released for PlayStation 4 or 5 or something, would be a big deal. But the fact that it's come into Steam makes me think that it might be possible to
Oh,
get 5 on Switch.
interesting. I still believe that it will never happen.
Yeah.
But so for me, I feel like what we've seen in the past few years that is new for Sony is that they're taking these games that were PlayStation exclusives, and then a few years after the fact, they are making them also available on PC. And again, Persona is not, like, as far as we know, officially a PlayStation exclusive, but they sure are treating it like one, including the like
Yeah.
put it on PC years after the fact type thing. So, the part that surprised me most about this is that it's not showing up on like PlayStation 4. That it still remains a
Yeah.
Vita exclusive. But no, I don't believe that it's going to make it over to Nintendo anytime soon.
Well, and anytime soon, I think is a great qualifier to put on that. What year did Persona 4 Golden come out on Vita? Like 2013 or something?
Yeah,
11.
maybe even earlier. Yeah.
I mean, we're this is a port of a port a port of a remaster of a game from over a decade ago at this point, the original. So like, if I could I could see a world where Persona 5 Royal comes out on Switch in like 2024 or something, like just a monstrously long time from now, when we're already excited about our Switch 2s or whatever it's going to be called, whatever comes next after Switch. So that's sort of more in line with what I'm thinking. Again, I still think there's no way that we would see Persona 5 on Switch this year.
I think you're
Just no
right,
way.
but also totally like forever is a long time, so never say never.
Then those are the titles of your first two albums, right? Forever's
Right.
a long time
Also,
and never say never.
exactly. Yes. CNBC reported over the weekend that AT&T may be looking to sell off Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, which they estimate to be worth $4 billion. So I just want to reiterate the craziness. What's going on here is that AT&T owns, amongst a ton of other things, Warner
Yes.
Brothers, or really like Time Warner, which owns Warner Brothers, which is, like Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment is all a part of that.
Yes.
So your phone provider is also your entertainment provider. I just can't stress how absolutely insane that is. But they also have because they've been buying up everything. They also have $100 billion in debt, and clearly are looking for areas that they can like sell off to try to lower some of that debt.
Which $100 billion in debt is such a huge amount of money that selling off an asset that makes money for $4 billion feels strange. But I guess it raises the question: how much money is Warner Brothers Interactive, like the WB studio, like a stable of studios? What have they been effectively selling for the last like decade? And I think the only real answers are NetherRealm, the Mortal Kombat and Injustice studio, and TT Games, the Lego studio. Because Lego games constantly come out and people buy Lego games. They're accessible. And Mortal Kombat is one of those. It's a mainstay. There's always a Mortal Kombat game on the list of best-selling games on whatever platforms. And then like you'd be tempted to say that like Rockstar is a big deal, but they haven't put out a game. They put out one Batman game this generation, and that was like a launch window game, right? Like we haven't seen a game from these guys since Arkham Knight. And like whatever, there have been so many rumors about like what the next Batman game will be, what Rockstar is up to. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I just wanted Rocksteady because
Rocksteady, my bad.
yeah, no,
Yes.
it's fine. I totally believe that it could have been Rockstar because you have Monolith Soft, you have
Right.
like there are like 5 developer names and they're all just like rearranging the words in that. So so I totally would have believed that it was Rockstar, but it is in fact Rocksteady.
Thank you so much. I had it wrong in our notes. But yeah, I mean that's there have been so many rumors about Rocksteady's new game, and the new Batman game, which could have either been coming from Rocksteady or from WB Montreal, who developed one of the other ones. But like neither of those studios has produced anything since the very beginning of the generation. So like I wonder if some of these things are just proving too costly and not producing enough stuff that just fast enough. Even like Monolith, like you say, they did the Shadow of games, Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. But it's been a while since those games came out. And then it's like, what what it's a real what have they done for me lately kind of situation.
I think video games are just a hard business to dabble in. Um,
Totally.
and so, like we've seen Disney get in and out of video games like a bunch over the past 20 years. And we saw like Universal when they were part of Endeavy, like kind of doing the same. And yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think it's really, it costs a lot of money. It's very time consuming. And, Warner Brothers, for as, having those games and those franchises that you talked about, like, I don't think of them as that big of a publisher. And so I don't know, but on the other hand, the according to CNBC, potential interested parties are like the names we all know, like Take-Two, EA, Activision Blizzard, and so you're also like, oh, good, just like more consolidation.
Yes. And it's weird though, because like those studios do make good games, right? Like Rocksteady makes good Arkham games. The Middle Earth games are well received. NetherRealm, like I said, and the TT games, the Lego games, they're all good games. But like, what are they without the Warner Brothers IP, right? Like, what I'm sure Rocksteady could make a great game, but if they make a great game without Batman, is it still like, are they still valued the same way? And I understand like they could still license out Warner Brothers as a greater entity could still license out their IP to either these studios or to other studios, and maybe that would even be a condition of selling them, is that like they have right of first refusal for for 5 years or 10 years or some exclusivity window of using the Warner Brothers IP. Harry Potter's in that, like there's so much. Warner Brothers sits on so much amazing, sellable, bankable IP that like it. I mean, I guess to draw the comparison to Disney, Disney sits on the a similar or even larger pool of IP. In fact, definitely larger. But they don't make the games themselves; they just license it out. So maybe that is what the model that AT&T is trying to emulate here.
Yeah, I will be, this kind of stuff always fascinates me, like this part of like the business side of it. And so I will be really interested to see what they end up doing here, cuz like all of this is so cyclical that I can totally see them getting out of it like in the next few years, and then 5 years from now they're like, we're going to get back into games, you know.
Yeah, and trying to buy up studios again.
Right.
NetherRealm is also a weird and interesting one to me because it feels like they NetherRealm and like Midway before them like existed as entities on their own, and then like were either purchased by Warner Brothers, and then like just sort of incorporated the Warner Brothers identity into their own thing, switching off between Mortal Kombat and Injustice, which has been their release schedule since like Mortal Kombat 9, right? That they would do one Mortal Kombat, one DC fighter, and then just like go back and forth. I expect whatever the next game they make will be an Injustice game, right? Um, and that like, what could NetherRealm just like buy themselves out and be like, you know what, we're just our own thing. We'll just do Mortal Kombat from now until forever, and people will keep buying it. And if you want us to make an Injustice game, like you got to pay us to do it,
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up a really good point in that this Warner Brothers Interactive, um, it feels like an old school publisher. It feels like it's operating as a publisher from like 20 years ago, and not the way that a Take-Two or an EA or an Activision Blizzard work anymore. Like, this really feels like independent studios that are just being published by Warner Brothers Interactive. It's not like an
Yeah.
EA where it's like we have studios in all over the world that are all contributing to this one game, or like the franchises are being managed at a much higher level and then the studios are just contributing to this like larger engine. This feels very much where it's just like, yeah, like these are just studios that clearly have some synergy with Warner Brothers, but are just kind of doing their own thing. And it doesn't feel, and I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like somebody from TT Games is also contributing to Rocksteady's games, or like NetherRealm is doing work on, the next Batman game. They really do, from what I've seen, like feel like separate entities.
Yeah, it is interesting though, because like a while back, and again, this is sort of tracing to the last time that like a Batman game came out. But like WB Montreal was making Arkham Origins, which came out like a year-ish before Arkham Knight, which was the Rocksteady game. And then there was that Escape from Blackwater, or the other Batman game, which was made by WB Boston. Like that they were all dealing with probably a
That's
lot of the
true.
same
Yeah,
assets
that's
and
true.
definitely like ideas, and like there must have been crossover in like the writing teams and all of that. But that's a long time ago now. And for better or for worse, every time that they collect the Arkham games, they leave Origins and Blackgate off of off of those compilations.
Yeah.
So like it seems like at one point they maybe did have some sort of synergy going between them, and I wonder if it's just been a problem of management at the Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment level, that like had the studios stop coordinating with each other, and have there must be something, and maybe it is just that we've not seen games from a lot of these studios in a while, but I feel like something beyond that has made the interactive entertainment like label not profitable, or not as profitable as they want it to be.
Is there more The World Ends With You content coming in the near future? Maybe. Square Enix filed.
Always maybe.
Yeah, you're not going to get us to commit. Square Enix filed a new The World Ends With You trademark in Japan on June 1st. Trademark filings don't, like always indicate that something is in development, but also art assets from The World Ends With You appear in the key art for Anime Expo Light 2020. So it seems like there is something in the works. And I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, or if you remember, like that the Switch port of The World Ends With You kind of like added a little bit of something at the end that could hint at like the continuation of the franchise. Does that
Yeah,
sound
I
right?
don't know. I mean, they definitely added like a chapter at the end of it. I do not know what the content of that is. But yeah, those things always like leave the door open for the next whatever. And also like they could just make a sequel to The World Ends With You. Like that would be fine. There could also be like an anime. Like
Yeah, that's
this
or
could be
mobile
anything.
game.
Yes, another mobile game.
And then IGN has hands-on impressions of the Pokemon Sword Shield DLC that's coming out this week, Isle of Armor, and they were able to get detail that we haven't really seen before. The new areas from the DLC will scale to the player's Pokemon's levels, meaning anyone should be able to enjoy the new content, whether like you're still working your way through the story, or you've got a team of like level 100 Pokemon and you're totally into the competitive scene. It's not like you'll go into the area and everything is just like level 45 or something like that.
Right. Which is sort of is nice. Obviously like the game has been in people's hands for 6-7 months now. And people will be entering the DLC at totally different levels. And even I don't know about you, Mark. You ever have the experience where you played a game and then like DLC came out and you go back to revisit it, and even though you're all powered up, you're all leveled up, you simply don't remember how to play the game?
Yes, 100%.
And Pokemon's a little bit more low stress than that. You don't really, I can forget how to do all of the like moves and combos in a Batman game. But in Pokemon, you just are selecting things from a menu. Easier to jump back in. But I'm glad that this allows for people at different places in the game to enjoy it.
Yeah, totally. Not like RPG related, but the last time that I remember like that really, really happening to me was when the Breath of the Wild DLC came out,
Yes.
and especially the Champions Ballad, especially because that was like a while after I had put the game down, and then trying to like jump right back into it when I was supposed to be like highly skilled, and I had like all the everything unlocked, like all the options unlocked.
Yeah.
And I was loaded up with different bows and like all this kind of stuff. It was like just remembering how to like toggle through everything and like uh select which bomb you want to use and all that kind of stuff was like such a struggle at the beginning.
Well, and also it's got that the top button is jump. It's the only game in the world where that top button makes you jump. And it's something that we all got used to while playing Breath of the Wild. But then as soon as you put it down and you play any other game where the jump button is in a much more reasonable place, then you forget how to do it.
Finally, last week, some Google Stadia users were able to access the E3 2019 build of Ubisoft's new IP, Gods and Monsters, that they revealed at E3 last year. In response to this mistake, the game's executive producer, Mark Alexis Cote, told Kotaku, quote, "Our vision for the game formerly known as Gods and Monsters has evolved in surprising ways, which is common when developing exciting new worlds. This footage is from our E3 2019 demo, which was shown to select press last June and is now over 1 year old. Much has changed since then in terms of features, tone, art, and character design, and even the name of the game. We are hard at work and very excited to finally show players what we have created at the end of summer."
Okay, so we got a sneak peek at a game that does not exist anymore and will never be released in that form. It's an interesting thing to have happen, that someone would just flip a switch or upload the wrong file to Google Stadia, and suddenly this playable form of this game that doesn't exist is just in people's homes.
Yeah, it is super weird. It's also a good reminder that Gods and Monsters or a game that at one point was called Gods and Monsters, is a thing, because I remember when it was revealed at E3 last year, it's like so wild. Like it was just so surprising to see a company like Ubisoft like taking this shot at something. And I also think it's interesting that just like kind of like the history of Ubisoft's um games like this, where like in the past, I can't remember what Zombie U started out as, but it was like, I can't remember the title, but it was like some like kind of like zany sci-fi like 50s feeling, Zombie Ate My Neighbors type stuff, and then eventually turns into Zombie U. So it'll be really interesting to see what Gods and Monsters turns into, even though I wasn't like particularly excited for Gods and Monsters in the first place. Also, I'm a little bit sad that this game will no longer raise awareness of the 1998 film named Gods and Monsters, about famed film director James Whale, who directed like Frankenstein, amongst others. Because like that's a really good movie, and people just won't be accidentally Googling it anymore.
That's the Ian McKellen, Brendan Fraser
movie. Yeah.
It's a good cast. That's a good cast.
It's a good cast.
I just wanted to circle back to the thing you were saying about like Ubisoft for a second, that like they do like their projects do seem to like evolve and change, but they'll also like just sunset stuff too. There's that was it called Skull and Bones? It was a pirate pirate ship game that I played at E3 2 years ago, and I still have a T-shirt from my gameplay experience there, and I love the shirt because it's got cool pirate stuff on it, but I love it even more because it now represents a game that is probably never going to come out.
It has been a while since we've heard about it. Maybe it'll come out eventually. I don't think they've officially said that Skull and Bones is canceled, but who knows what it like turned into.
Yeah, it could be anything else by now, and when it comes out with a different name, we won't even know that it was Skull and Bones.
Right.
All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, you can share it wherever you share stuff, Facebook or Twitter. It helps us out a bunch. On Twitter, you should follow us. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. We also have a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.
Hey, Rachel, Oscar.
Yeah, Claire?
Do you love Disney movies?
Uh-huh.
Have you seen them all?
Not all of them.
What do you guys think if we watch them all in chronological order and then talk about them?
Ooh. Oh, and what if we could talk about it with some of our favorite friends?
I love that.
Yeah, and what if we do it inside the Disney Vault?
You know, that's the name of our podcast, Inside the Disney Vault on Campfire Media.
Yeah, check us out on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to yours.
That's Inside the Disney Vault.
Let's go!
Woo!
Campfire.